Many foreign professionals in Vietnam assume that if they hold a senior title, a short-term assignment, or an investor visa, they automatically don't need a work permit. That's not true. Vietnam's labor law allows work permit exemptions, but only for specific categories and only after official approval by the competent labor authority. Working without a valid work permit or a recognized work permit exemption certificate, even for senior managers. For employers and expatriates, understanding who qualifies and how to apply for a work permit exemption is essential to operating legally and avoiding serious administrative penalties. Vietnam's work permit exemption regime is regulated by the government's regulations on foreign employees working in Vietnam and their implementing guidelines. These regulations define who qualifies for a work permit exemption, the required notification procedures, and the employer's compliance obligations. Although exempt individuals do not need a work permit, they must still obtain a Work Permit Exemption Certificate, WPEC, from the Department of Home Affairs. This certificate has the same validity as a work permit, typically up to 2 years, and can be renewed once. The key takeaway: exemption is not automatic, it must be formally recognized. Under Vietnamese regulations on foreign employees working in Vietnam, the following categories may qualify for work permit exemption. Owners or capital contributing members of limited liability companies operating in Vietnam. Members of the board of directors of joint stock companies. Chief representatives or heads of representative offices, projects, or international non-governmental organizations in Vietnam. Foreign lawyers who are licensed to practice law in Vietnam. Experts or technicians entering Vietnam for short-term assignments of less than 30 days per entry and not exceeding 90 cumulative working days in a calendar year. Intra-company transferees working within 11 service sectors committed by Vietnam under WTO agreements. Foreigners married to Vietnamese citizens and residing in Vietnam. Students and interns working in Vietnam under approved internship or training agreements. Teachers and lecturers invited to work by Vietnamese educational institutions. Foreign media correspondents, volunteers, and other special cases approved by competent authorities. Each exemption category has specific eligibility conditions and documentary requirements. Misclassification is a common reason for rejection. Accurate category identification is essential for approval. Before applying for a work permit exemption, the employer must carefully review the candidate's background and determine which exemption category applies. For example, an investor with a capital contribution of 3 billion Vietnamese dongs or more may qualify under the investor exemption category, while an expert assigned to a short-term project may qualify under the short-term work exemption, less than 30 days per entry. Employers should note that Vietnam recognizes 19 distinct work permit exemption categories, each with different legal conditions and supporting documents. LTS law recommends preparing an eligibility matrix that compares the foreign employee's role, duration of work, immigration status, and supporting documents against all applicable exemption categories before submission. This step significantly reduces the risk of rejection, delays, or post-inspection compliance issues. The exemption dossier generally includes a written request for work permit exemption submitted by the employer, documents proving eligibility for exemption, such as enterprise registration showing capital contribution, assignment or appointment letters, marriage certificates, or official project invitations, depending on the applicable exemption category. A health certificate issued within the previous 12 months by a competent medical facility. A criminal record certificate issued by the home country or Vietnam, as applicable to the individual's residence history. Certified copies of passport and passport-sized photos. Vietnamese translations and notarization of all foreign language documents. All foreign-issued documents must be consular legalized, unless exempt under applicable international agreements. Missing, improperly legalized, or incorrectly translated documents remain one of the most common reasons for exemption rejection. Employers must submit the exemption dossier to the competent labor authority at the provincial level where the foreigner is expected to work. The submission must be made at least 10 working days before the foreign employee starts working. If approved, the authority issues a work permit exemption certificate with a validity period of up to 2 years. Both the employer and the foreign employee must retain copies of the certificate for inspection. Failure to obtain the exemption certificate means the foreign employee is considered working illegally, even if they qualify for exemption in principle. Once the work permit exemption certificate is issued, the employer may proceed to sign a labor contract with the exempt employee, where a labor contract is legally required for the specific role. Within 5 working days from the commencement of work, the employer must notify the competent labor authority of the foreign employee's employment details. For foreigners working in investment, ownership, or board membership positions, a labor contract may not be required, but notification to the labor authority remains mandatory. Proper notification ensures full compliance and protects the employer during labor or immigration inspections. Work permit exemption certificates can be renewed once for a period of up to 2 additional years. Renewal applications must be submitted at least 10 days before expiry. If any job title, company, or work location changes, a new application is required. Employers should monitor expiry dates carefully. Unintentional lapses result in non-compliance and fines of up to 75 million Vietnamese dongs. When employment or assignment ends, the employer must return the exemption certificate to the competent labor authority within 15 days. The employer must also notify immigration authorities if the employee's visa or temporary residence card is tied to the exemption. Proper closure ensures smooth future applications and avoids audit flags during company compliance reviews. Confirm exemption category under Vietnamese labor regulations. Prepare fully legalized and translated documents. Submit dossier at least 10 working days before employment begins. Keep a valid work permit exemption certificate on file. Notify the competent labor authority and immigration after issuance or termination. Renew before expiry of continuing employment. Following this checklist ensures legal employment and protects the company during inspections. Misclassifying foreign workers under the wrong exemption category. Assuming investors automatically qualify without proving capital contribution. Allowing employees to start work before the exemption certificate is issued. Using English-only documents instead of Vietnamese or bilingual versions. Missing renewal deadlines for exemption certificates. Each of these mistakes can lead to administrative fines, visa cancellation, or suspension of business operations. Proper legal guidance helps prevent these costly errors. Each of these mistakes can lead to administrative fines, visa cancellation, or suspension of business operations. Proper legal guidance helps prevent these costly errors. An Australian investor in Da Nang held a 10% stake in a joint venture but was repeatedly rejected for work permit exemption. LTS Law reviewed the investment documents, restructured the capital registration, and resubmitted the dossier with complete legalization. Within 10 working days, the competent labor authority granted the exemption certificate. The investor resumed work legally, avoiding penalties and visa complications. Proper documentation turned a rejected case into a compliant success. At LTS Law, we guide employers through every stage of the work permit exemption process, from eligibility assessment to application and renewal. Our lawyers prepare bilingual dossiers, coordinate legalization and translation, and liaise directly with competent labor and immigration authorities. We also train HR teams to manage foreign employee compliance systems effectively. Whether your company hires investors, expatriate managers, or short-term consultants, LTS Law ensures each case meets Vietnam's evolving labor and immigration regulations. In Vietnam, exemption does not mean exemption from compliance. Every foreign worker must either hold a valid work permit or a properly certified exemption. Avoid costly penalties, visa issues, and business disruption by managing foreign labor legally and professionally. Contact LTS Law today to assess eligibility, prepare exemption applications, or manage renewals. Operate with confidence and compliance, with LTS Law as your trusted labor and immigration partner in Vietnam.